The rain was relentless that fateful night as I made my way to Buffalo Wild Wings. I had been working there for the past 2 years, and while it was just a part-time job to pay my way through college, it was anything but ordinary. Buffalo Wild Wings wasn't your average restaurant. It was prestigious, renowned for its delicious wings and lively atmosphere, but there was something about it that had always given me chills, a sense of impending doom that lingered in the air. As I walked through the dimly lit parking lot, the neon sign of the restaurant flickered ominously. I pulled my jacket tighter around me, trying to ward off the cold and the unsettling feeling that always accompanied my shifts. The place had an eerie ambiance that only seemed to intensify when the rain poured down. I could hear the faint, haunting echoes of laughter and chatter as I approached the entrance, where the giant buffalo mascot stood, its hollow eyes staring into the abyss. Inside, the restaurant was buzzing with activity. Customers huddled around tables, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the wall-mounted TVs. The scent of spicy chicken wings hung thick in the air. I made my way to the back, where the kitchen was located, passing by the bar where a group of patrons cheered loudly at a game on the screen. "Hey, Alex," my coworker, Sarah, greeted me as I entered the kitchen. She was a few years older than me, a veteran of Buffalo Wild Wings who had seen it all. Her eyes held a weary, haunted look that mirrored my own. "Hey, Sarah," I reply, trying to muster a smile. The kitchen was a whirlwind of activity, with cooks shouting orders and the sound of sizzling wings filling the air. I donned my apron and started taking orders from the waitstaff, passing them along to the cooks. It was a routine I was all too familiar with, but tonight, something was different. The atmosphere in the kitchen was tense, as if we were all waiting for something to happen. As the night wore on, the restaurant grew busier. More customers streamed in, their voices blending into an eerie cacophony. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The laughter and conversations of the patrons seemed to take on a sinister undertone, like a discordant melody played in the darkest corners of the night. I glanced at the clock and realized that it was nearing closing time. The rain outside had turned into a torrential downpour, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief that my shift was almost over. But then, as I was about to head to the break room, something strange happened. One of the waitstaff, Jenny, came rushing into the kitchen, her eyes wide with fear. "Alex, you have to come quick," she exclaimed. "What's going on?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "Just come with me," Jenny urged, and I followed her out of the kitchen. She led me to a corner of the restaurant, away from the prying eyes of the customers. There, I saw what had shaken her so profoundly. A table near the window sat empty, except for a single plate of half-eaten wings. This wasn't unusual in itself, as sometimes customers left in a hurry. But what made my blood run cold was the fact that the plate was surrounded by a pool of dark, crimson blood. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Did someone get hurt?" I asked in a hushed tone. Jenny nodded, her voice trembling. "I was serving that table, and the guy was eating his wings when he suddenly... his nose started bleeding. But it wasn't just a nosebleed, Alex. It was like a faucet had been turned on. Blood was pouring out of his nose, and he was clutching his head, screaming in pain. His eyes, they were wide, like he'd seen something horrible. I couldn't comprehend what I was hearing. The other staff members began to gather around us, their expressions filled with shock and disbelief. A customer had bled profusely right there in the restaurant, and nobody knew why. The paramedics were called and they rushed the man to the hospital, still incoherent and bleeding. The blood-stained table was cordoned off, and the manager assured us that the restaurant would be thoroughly cleaned and sanitized. But as I returned to my duties, the sense of dread that had gripped me earlier had intensified. Closing time arrived, and we began the arduous task of cleaning up. The rain outside had not let up, and the sound of it drumming on the roof only added to the eerie atmosphere. I couldn't help but wonder if the incident with the bleeding customer was an isolated incident or something more sinister. As we finished cleaning, the manager gathered the staff for a brief meeting. He assured us that what had happened was a freak occurrence, possibly due to a medical condition. But his words did little to ease the unease that had settled over the restaurant like a thick fog. I left the restaurant that night with a heavy heart, the rain soaking me to the bone. The image of the man bleeding profusely, his eyes filled with terror, haunted my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that Buffalo Wild Wings held secrets, dark and unsettling secrets that lurked beneath its vibrant exterior. The following week passed without incident, and I began to hope that the bizarre incident had been a one-time occurrence. But then, on a stormy Friday night, it happened again. I was taking an order from a family at one of the tables when the father suddenly clutched his head in agony. His wife screamed as blood poured from his nose, just like the previous incident. Panic swept through the restaurant as the paramedics were called once more. I couldn't help but notice that the bleeding man's eyes held the same look of abject horror as the previous victim. The manager was at a loss, and rumors began to circulate among the staff. Some believed the restaurant was cursed, while others thought it might be a sinister prank. But as more incidents occurred over the weeks that followed, it became clear that something was terribly wrong. Customers began to avoid Buffalo Wild Wings, and the once thriving restaurant was now shrouded in a dark reputation. The news media caught wind of the bizarre occurrences, and reporters camped outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of the next victim. The atmosphere inside the restaurant grew increasingly tense, and even the bravest employees were plagued by a sense of impending doom. One night, as I was cleaning a table in the corner, I overheard a conversation between two men at the bar. They spoke in hushed tones, their faces etched with fear. "I heard this place used to be something else before it became Buffalo Wild Wings," one of them said. "They say it's some sort of occult gathering spot." The other man nodded. "Yeah, I heard that too. And they say that the spirits of those who used to come here still haunt the place." My heart pounded as I listened to their words. It sounded like mere superstition, but at this point, I was willing to consider any explanation. I decided to do some research, and what I uncovered sent chills down my spine. Buffalo Wild Wings had indeed been something else before it became a restaurant. It had once been a speakeasy during the Prohibition-era, a place where secret gatherings and rituals were rumored to have taken place. The history of the building was murky, with tales of dark ceremonies and unspeakable acts that had occurred within its walls. As the weeks turned into months, the incidents continued. The bleeding customers became a grim regularity, and the restaurant's reputation continued to plummet. The manager tried everything, from bringing in paranormal investigators to blessing the premises, but nothing seemed to stop the bizarre occurrences. One night, As I was locking up after another tumultuous shift, I heard a voice behind me. I turned to see Sarah, her face pale as a ghost. "Alex, you have to see this," she whispered, holding out her phone. I took the phone from her trembling hand and saw a news article. The headline sent a shiver down my spine. "Buffalo Wild Wings, the Restaurant of Doom." The article detailed the strange events that had plagued the restaurant and the dark history that had been unearthed. It also mentioned that the bleeding incidents had spread beyond the restaurant, occurring in other places associated with Buffalo Wild Wings, like the distributor's warehouse and even the corporate office. The restaurant was on the verge of bankruptcy, and the manager had all but given up hope. But as I stood there, reading the article, a sense of determination washed over me. I couldn't let Buffalo Wild Wings be consumed by this darkness. I delved deeper into the restaurant's history, uncovering old newspaper clippings and testimonials from former employees. What I found was a pattern of strange occurrences that stretched back decades. Buffalo Wild Wings seemed to be cursed, its very existence a magnet for bizarre and terrifying events. I decided to confront the manager with my findings, and he reluctantly agreed to hear me out. As I presented the evidence, I could see the fear and resignation in his eyes. He knew that something was horribly wrong with Buffalo Wild Wings, but he had been powerless to stop it. Together, we reached a decision. We would close the restaurant for good, severing ties with the cursed building and hoping that it would finally put an end to the bizarre occurrences. The final night arrived, and the staff gathered one last time to bid farewell to Buffalo Wild Wings. As we locked the doors for the last time, a sense of relief washed over me. The rain had stopped, and the ominous neon sign flickered off. I looked back at the building, its dark history now a closed chapter. But as I turned away, I couldn't help but wonder if the darkness that had plagued Buffalo Wild Wings would ever truly be gone. The chilling memories of those nights would haunt me forever, a reminder that sometimes the most prestigious places can harbor the darkest secrets, and that perhaps some places are best left to the shadows.